Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Randy?
Since we founded Bombas, we've always said our socks, underwear, and T-shirts are super soft. Any new ideas?
Maybe sublimely soft.
Or disgustingly cozy.
Wait, what?
I got it. Bombas. Absurdly comfortable essentials for yourself
and for those facing homelessness.
Because one purchased equals one donated.
Wow, did we just write an ad?
Yes.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/soft and use code SOFT for 20% off your first purchase.
An encounter with Sasquatch is unforgettable. After I encountered that at Ward Camp Crystal Mine, I wanted to find out more about Sasquatch. I discovered Melba Ketchum, Dr. Melba Ketchum, and her Sasquatch Genome Project. You have DNA evidence of Bigfoot. Is that right?
That's correct.
What is the problem with people not being able to accept this or give you peer-reviewed accreditation? Where's the holdup?
The government and people that want to be the first to find it, allegedly, and I took that spot, and they don't like it because they're, quite frankly, jealous, or it cuts into their income as self-proclaimed experts. There are no experts in this field. There's not been enough studies to really know what we need to know about them. So nobody is an expert. There's a bunch of people running around in the woods looking for them. That's not hard science, and it's not proof.
The other thing, too, is there's a controversy over whether this is an actual, like, ape-type being or an interdimensional. What's the story with that?
Well, there's different opinions from different people. I've seen them. I can't explain some of the things I've seen, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that they're interdimensional. I also have seen that there's a certain amount of an appearance that appears to be ape, but they're not apes. They're also not completely human either. Most of their DNA on the nuclear side, that comes from the father, is unknown. There's nothing in any database on this planet of DNA sequence that aligns with this. So whatever they came from on the father's side is not known. It's not been found. It's not been sequenced. People say they're ancient beings. They're not ancient beings. On the mother side, which is 100% modern human, you can trace back the approximate time that type of DNA appeared, and they show to be around 13 to 16,000 years old as far as the species. Now, we have an outlier that is like 25,000 years from Africa, but we don't necessarily have proof of when the hybridization occurred. Some theories say that perhaps it was a slave that mated with one at some point in the U.S. It's hard to say, but I do know that they are not an ancient species. The African haplogroup we have, I think, is an outlier. Since they're a hybrid, we have no way of knowing when the hybridization actually occurred. It could be much younger a hybridization than that 25,000 year estimate. So if it was a species that was a pure species, not a hybrid, we could pinpoint when they basically came into existence. But since it's a hybrid, we have to go by when the mother was present, and it can be any time after that. So in other words, the hybridization could have occurred 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago instead of 25,000 years ago. They're a young species in comparison to world history, basically. They've been historically reported throughout recorded history. There are, for instance, in cathedrals in Europe that have carvings of these things, and it's pretty well accepted over there. They call them wild men, and same with tapestries and other. In the paper, we actually put a picture of a coin from, I believe it was 500 BC that had a picture of one on it. So they've been around, but they're not ancient. They're not more than, the absolute max would be 25,000 years. Most of the samples we tested ran between 13,000 and 16,000 years ago as far as the earliest possible date that they could have come into existence.
When you got involved in this, is this something you anticipated? It kind of sounds like it took you by surprise.
Yes, it did, because I didn't believe they existed, first of all. I thought it was a big joke. In fact, I even persecuted one of my friends. Oh, I'm so ashamed, because she saw one, and I didn't believe her. I didn't know what she had seen, but I had no idea what she saw, because I didn't know they existed, and they never crossed my mind at the time. But I actually made fun of her for saying that she saw this giant, hairy man run across the yard, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
You know, and Bigfoot, like I said, didn't even cross my mind, because I absolutely did not believe they existed.
Okay, so you're a veterinarian.
That's what my degree is in, but I've done genetics since 85.
Yeah, and you were involved in research for 9/11.
We actually analyze samples or analyze sequence to help. Once the sequence is analyzed, we could, they could match it to the people, the family members.
For identification.
Yes, we did that. We've done cases for the FBI. I've done Innocence Project cases. I've done death penalty cases. We have a lot of forensic experience, but not just that. We worked on the horse genome project and the dog genome project and all these different genetic research topics, as well as had a service lab where we did a lot of genetic testing, including paternity.
Those are people hiring you based on the credibility and viability, basically, of your work.
Yes. In fact, I even had to go through a Fry hearing to determine that I was truly an expert in DNA, and I passed the Fry hearing and was accepted as an expert witness in DNA.
But that's where the Bigfoot thing hits the wall, because as soon as you hit that topic and that subject matter, all of a sudden your credibility didn't matter, or at least that's how I interpret it.
That's right. I couldn't do forensics anymore. I couldn't testify in court anymore, because they would bring up all the lies on the internet and make me look like an idiot.
And let's go back to you finally realizing maybe they existed. How did that happen?
The first thing that happened is we tested hair samples from a eyewitness sighting, and the hair follicles or roots or tissue tags, whatever moniker you want to call it, came back with human DNA, 100% human mitochondrial DNA, when we did a species identification. And non-human hair, which is about the size of horse mane hair, should not be given human results. And we know, and the big thing, that the only thing they're trying to hang on to is they say, oh, it was contaminated. No, it wasn't contaminated. We're a forensic lab. We knew exactly what we were doing as far as limiting any contamination. There's also ways you can actually see on the graphical representation of the DNA sequence if there is contamination. And there was none. Of course, nobody wants to see that. I have it. It was not contaminated. We did get pure human sequence, beautiful sequence, from non-human hair. And that just doesn't happen. And I reran it I don't know how many times, because I just couldn't believe it. I mean, we re-extracted, we washed it. With hair, it's real easy. You can just wash those hair samples and get any contaminating DNA off, which is, of course, what we did with any forensic sample that we could wash. So we knew it was pure. We knew it wasn't contaminated in any way. But yet they say, oh, it's just human contamination. No, it's not. Then I knew there was something really going on with those samples, and it went from there.
From there to actually seeing a Bigfoot, you've seen them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen lots of times now. That actually came about because there's a group of people called experiencers or habituators, whichever term you prefer. They actually interact with these beings. They're generally pretty closed-mouthed because people make fun of them.
Yeah.
And they also want to protect them. When word came out that I was doing this, I had a bunch of them come forward and want to take me to see them. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I don't think so. They just kept on until I finally gave in and went. And I saw 5 that one night. I was blown away. One in daylight, peeing around a tree, and then 4 others in the full moon. You could see them. it was unbelievable. I couldn't, your mind sees it, but it doesn't want to believe it.
Yeah. Was there any photographic evidence from that night?
There's no photographic evidence from that night because, well, one, these are sentient beings, and they abhor electronic equipment of any sort. You're not going to find good pictures of them. They're very, very rare.
What I do have a picture of is a log that the Sasquatch put up in the tree the night before we got there. It's pretty impressive. Back in a few with Dr. Melba Ketchum and Sasquatch Bigfoot DNA. Wendy's Coffee House. SasquatchGenomeProject.org. Dr. Melba Ketchum is my guest. Sasquatch DNA. You have questions? Answers, the Q&A section on that website. Do they want their picture taken?
Really, they just need to be left alone. I mean, how would you like it if somebody was coming into your house without asking?
And trying to take pictures, and yes.
Exactly. And, well, they're not going to allow that.
Dr. Melba Ketchum, Bigfoot DNA, that's what we're talking about. We're also talking about how hard it is to get a picture of them, because maybe they know what you're doing. I've seen some instances where they've had a game cam up, and you'll see the fur like go across around the front or something, just like something's close or behind it, and you have the feeling that it's toying with you.
In some ways, yeah. They know. I mean, but see, game cams also, they put out infrared light, and I feel that they can see this. I know animals can for sure, because I've had a game cam out before, and the animals would come right up to it and look at it.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So they're seeing the light coming from it for the night part of it, for sure.
Okay, so then when you had the experience seeing them, obviously there had to be a mind shift with that.
Obviously, yes.
Yes. Okay. So how then you said, yeah, then you believed your friend and felt really bad. But so what happened from there? Because once you experience this, it's a whole new ballgame.
That's true. It is. I spent a lot of time out in the field for a long time learning. That's something I don't share, what I know. But I have spent a lot of time. I don't anymore. There's no need to. Plus, there's other entities out there that aren't good, and you don't need to. You know, there's books out about people disappearing, especially in national parks and in the wilderness areas. Some people are blaming the Bigfoot for it. I'm not saying that a rogue didn't probably take some of those people, but there are other entities out there that are much worse. So you can't blame them entirely on that. And they're like people. There's good ones and bad ones. I came across a bad one once and scared the wits out of me.
Do they follow you home?
Actually, they live in this area. They have always lived in this area. I just didn't realize it because they're so subtle that unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to know. Okay, now the Native American culture, this is something that's been a long time resident in their history. This isn't something that they consider a joke or, fiction. They have different names. No, it's not. Yeah, and they honor them, and so it's interesting. We still don't believe that, even though they've got hundreds of years. Well, they don't talk about it a whole lot. They're not real open about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I have a friend that's Native American, and he wanted to talk to me about my research, and when we were talking about them, he asked me some things, and what I answered, he says, "Oh, I know you're real because that's in our oral legends that we don't talk about."
Yeah, okay.
So, I had knowledge from going out in the field that aligned with their legends.
Yeah.
So, it's validated.
There's paranormal activity that goes along with this. Have you experienced that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on any of that because that's not science, and I'm here for science.
That's fair. All right. And see, that's the problem, though. The fact that you are science and you still get dissed or in some way, shape, or form demeaned because of your interest. And not only that, your expertise in this area, because it's still a taboo subject. It's still just like UFOs are now becoming okay to talk about because somehow the military signing off on it makes it legit, even though for years the ridicule, all of the obfuscation, everything they've done says that it's not supposed to exist. And now, by the way, we have secret files.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but you're in that boat right now where it's on the cusp of maybe coming forward with these things are real to we're still not going to talk about it.
I've got more information. I just haven't brought it out yet. It's not the right time. There's a little bit of DNA I yet need to test to come out with everything. And COVID certainly shut that down.
Well, yeah, that put a stopper in a lot of things right now. And in some ways, I think nature appreciates it.
I think so, too. I think people should just leave them alone and not worry about it because it'll all come out anyway, eventually.
Okay, so if you are going out into an area, like you mentioned, national parks, is there a way to be observant and experience it or to avoid it? What you have?
I would avoid it because you don't know if you're getting one that's dangerous or not. I mean, most experiences are positive, but there are a lot of negative ones out there too. And they're like people in that way. There's good ones and bad ones, and you better know the difference. I would say never go into the woods alone and be cognizant of your surroundings. So put yourself, don't go off trail into areas you don't know. That's not good because some of the more negative experiences are whenever they've gotten too close to children. They have children and they will protect their children. They just need to be left alone. I mean, how would you like it if somebody was coming into your house without asking?
And trying to take pictures and yes.
Exactly. And, well, they're not going to allow that.
And that's what and I've done some research with looking and trying to investigate and explore the experiencers, some who have glyphs and do interrelate and go and, this is my clan that I'm working with. That's what they say. And
yeah, exactly. That's exactly true. And they do. I know that for a fact. Like I say, I've seen it.
And so the interaction in there is when it's okay and when you're respectful and you have a clue and maybe some support from other experiencers, you have a better chance of understanding that this is real. But if you're just going in with no backup and with a shotgun or something, probably going to have the negative experience.
Well, not necessarily. Usually they just avoid people like that.
It's like invisible.
Unless they have a reason, like their babies, to run them out of the woods.
Okay, yeah. Screaming and, never going back to the woods again.
I mean, I think, my personal belief is they allow whoever they want to allow to see them.
I agree.
I mean, because we had an experience with a clan that we had a person with us that everybody could see them but him. He could not see them.
See, I think there needs to be more information about that because what happens is the person goes in, I can't see them, they don't exist. Everybody else did, but that person didn't, so they don't exist. Well, they don't exist for that person.
There were about a dozen people, and everybody saw them but him.
Yeah. And for me, I think that's his protection. That's his safety net. That way he can be secure in his belief and his whatever it is, mindset that they are not real because he's not ready for
Well,
that.
This person did not have a good mindset. So, not that he was against them, but the mindset was not there. And he did not fit in with the rest of the crowd. And apparently they knew that.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was just so mentally blocked up that, it was in his own mind he couldn't see them. I just know that he couldn't see them and everybody else did.
Yeah. Going along with that then, how do we get, when the rest of society is looking for some kind of proof to corroborate experiencers who are saying they're real, just honor their space, stay out of the woods, respect that area, which then people, well, you're giving me boundaries, I don't like that. How do you get people to honor that they have to have some kind of boundary sometimes in places they're not familiar with because you actually don't know what these beings are capable of. And when they're there, you're on their turf.
Well, there's been some, horrible things that have happened with people trespassing when there's a group of that's not good. It's pretty common knowledge out in the community that, the government will take out a clan when they're hurting people. And I've had, some firsthand knowledge on that. So, it's not like, there are areas that are kind of no-go areas. That's why I said really it's best to just leave them alone. They exist, and they're curious about us enough that they'll watch us, but they generally, leave everybody alone. But if you go in there and push the issue, that's not good.
Okay, I'm thinking pushing the issue might be when they have Bigfoot hunting season. And this is Oklahoma having a hunting season, licenses, the whole 9 yards, to hunt Bigfoot. Okay, we'll come back to that in the next break. My guest, Dr. Melba Ketchum. Bigfoot DNA, it exists. Wendy's Coffee House. KCMO Talk Radio.
I have different samples, like I have giants, I have dogman, I have, elongated skulls, and all of these things, I want to prove the relatedness of them. That's where I'm headed with it.
Coming up later in the break. Wendy's Coffee House, my guest, Dr. Melba Ketchum. So what do you think about the Bigfoot hunting season in Oklahoma?
Oh, I think it's dreadful. I think they need to leave it alone. And the thing is, they're going on the assumption they don't exist, and it's more of a touristy thing. They don't realize how serious some of these people are. I mean, there's the government already knows all of this. I've actually had a whistleblower come for us that at the right time I'll release his information. They have more information than I do on some things, and I have more information than they do on others. But it all corroborates. It's been corroborated more than once. So I know that my data is good. It went 2 rounds at Nature. If you make it first, only 1 in 10 papers even gets reviewed at Nature. We got reviewed and got the feedback from the reviewers, and and normally, if you make that first cut, if you give the reviewers everything they ask for, it publishes. But somebody got to them because the second round, 2 of them wouldn't even review it again. And the other 2, one just said he didn't believe it, period. That's not a review. That's not a peer review. And the other one asked for things that were already in the paper, so he didn't even read it. He did that both times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appealed it, and they wouldn't even answer me. They just said, we're not going to publish it. So somebody got to them and got to every other scientific journal because we tried a bunch, and they wouldn't even take it for peer review. After Nature, a huge journal, took it. We finally found a new journal to take it. We got passing peer reviews. And an hour before we were going public with it, published, they email me and say they can't publish it because their lawyer tells them it will ruin them if they do, ruin their journal and everything else. So they pull the plug an hour before publication. And that's when we actually had to purchase the journal to keep the peer reviews.
Okay.
So,
and that's the thing. You're up front with that. There's no behind the scenes.
I
It's
have the email.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not a big secret. Anything I say, I can back up. One way or the other, I've got a paper trail on all the science and everything that went on with this.
Well, what you keep hinting at, there is more information, and when the time is right. Do you have any estimate? 2 years, 5 years, 6 months? Any estimate?
Depends on the funding to finish the testing. I mean, it could be done in just a few months if the funding comes through. But finding funding after COVID is like impossible.
Okay.
So we're sitting on that. We've got it partially done. It just needs to be completed. And then I have all this other corroboration data that's, corroborating my findings as well as some new data that did not come from me that is quite mind-blowing.
Okay. Can you find, I'm thinking like Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and then attach it to a History Channel? Or
I'm not going to do that again, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
They were generous when we did that before, but people were given money that really didn't need to be given money. It's not like, somebody that's got money to burn.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad about that. I don't want people giving me money that don't have much money themselves. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, their obsession would trigger them to, or well, that's probably the wrong word. Their interest in Bigfoot would trigger them to give to the project.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew who some of these people were, and they just didn't need to be doing this. So I won't do that again. What I'm looking for is more like a person that has plenty of money and, is interested in the subject and will fund the research like before.
Like Bob Bigelow. I would go, I don't know if he would do it, but he's got the money.
He already knows about all of this. I mean, him and Colm.
Yes.
Colm Kelleher actually edited our paper.
Oh.
Because he was a well-published scientist.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he edited our paper for us, just to check for all the proper writing and, make sure everything should pass. So I'm greatly indebted to him for doing that.
Okay. Well, can you call George Knapp and have him take another look at it?
No, there's no point in taking another look at it. It's out there. It is what it is.
I know, but it's called marketing. It's marketing.
See, this is the deal. I don't really like being famous. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to, I'm just a regular person. The hoopla around all of this is not something I really desire. If I could just walk away from it right now, I would. But I want to finish it. I want to finish the science and then walk away. Now, that part of me, I can't seem to stop.
When you have solid evidence, solid proof, it's really hard to distance and say, okay, I'm done. It's like, well, wait, this is good.
Well, I am done in a huge sense. I don't participate in the Bigfoot community. There's no point. I really have put my interest elsewhere in a lot of ways, but I do have samples that I need to, they're partly done. I need to finish it and then come out with it and then be done, because I do have the corroboration from more than one source. And I know what they are. I know, what needs to be out there. But the time's not quite right, because I need all of the complete validation of some extra samples I have. I have different samples, like I have giants, I have dogman, I have, elongated skulls, and all of these things. I want to prove the relatedness of them. That's where I'm headed with it.
Were those given to you? How did you acquire them? Is that a reasonable question?
The giants came from the museum around the Lovelock Cave. Elongated skulls were sent to me from Peru. The dogman samples are from eyewitness sightings. And like I say, some of it's already done. I just need to finish it. That's
actually a huge treasure trove there when you're putting all that together and trying to say they're related.
Oh, I know they are. I have to complete everything, and it's got to be repeatable, and I'm not finished enough to say that. Like I say, I know they're related. It's just making it fail-safe science, because, I've got partial results enough to know that there's things in common with them, but I don't have all of them done yet. So I need to get all of them done, so there's more than one specimen of each type of individual. Plus, I've got, a couple more Bigfoot samples I want to run to repeat what I've already done once and for all.
Dot the I's and cross the T's, basically.
Again. Yeah, use a different lab. It's what I'm going to do for the genomes, is what I'm saying, I guess.
The SasquatchGenomeProject.org. Is that where we can find updates on your progress?
Well, I'm not really giving updates right now. I mean, you got the biggest update that I've given in a while.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good.
I really just pretty much stay silent on it. I will not try to publish a paper again because it's stacked against. I had a very good team of very good scientists. Head of department at Texas A&M, University of Texas, USC. All these 12 different labs were all fantastic. And that didn't matter to the reviewers.
What happens next? Bigfoot DNA, Dr. Melba Ketchum. KCMO Talk Radio, Wendy's Coffee House, Dr. Melba Ketchum. So what's next?
The way I look at it, I'm just going to put it out there, make it accessible on the website once I do. But I'm not going to try to get another paper published. There's no point.
Yeah. Well, you found how easy it was for them to shut you down.
Yeah. Even Nature, they leaked the peer reviews. I should have sued them. honestly, because that's against the contract. It's all supposed to be top secret until it publishes. And it wasn't even through the peer review process whenever the first round was leaked, and leaked to a hater of all people.
Somebody had an inside line on that, inside track.
Exactly. If you're a peer reviewer, you do not leak anything. If you're a journal, you don't leak anything. I mean, that's, we're not allowed to talk about it. I am, because they leaked it. I mean, I got the peer reviews on the website because I was able to talk about it after they leaked it. So it's common knowledge. I could go out there and post those peer reviews, which I did.
Is there anybody supporting you? I mean, that's part of it, too, is a support system to help make sure that this has some kind of a safety net.
There's nobody supporting me at this point. They've done enough character assassination that I'm pretty well on my own with this. I mean, there's a lot of people in the Bigfoot community that do support me as far as they believe the work and what have you, but as far as any other scientist at this point, it's character assassination to try to do anything with this subject. When the paper published, there's been some critique about the other authors not coming forward. Well, I'll give you an example. One of my authors called me because, see, I didn't write the whole paper. I only wrote part. I basically put it together and wrote a little of it, but each different specialty was written by the person that did it. So it's like the electron microscopy was written by the person that did the analysis on the electron microscopy. The hair analysis part was done by the person that did the hair analysis. And the whole genome was written by the person that ran the whole genome. I didn't write the paper by myself. I had a wonderful set of co-authors. But the very day it came out, one of them called in a panic saying, "Oh my God, there's all kinds of people calling." And one of them called my boss and said that how can you have anybody in forensic science that believes in Bigfoot? It was like this huge scandal for all these co-authors.
Wow.
So I contacted every one of them. I said, look, just send them to me. I'm the corresponding author. I'm the first author. Therefore, I have to take the heat. And they all went silent because otherwise they would have lost their jobs and their livelihood.
The first thing that comes to mind is it's not about belief when you've got science. That isn't belief. No,
it's not. That's the whole point. But they made it about belief, and they made it about everything they could criticize. Like, for instance, they criticized that my degree's in veterinary medicine. But the problem is that in Europe, all of these types of laboratories are run by veterinarians or MDs, whereas in this country, most of them are PhDs. It's just a difference in the way it's done. Like, I was elected as international chair of multiple genetics committees by my peers.
Yeah.
If I was just a little kitty cat vet, as they called me, I certainly wouldn't have been elected by my peers for international positions, chair of these huge committees for different species like the Horse Genome Project and what have you.
When they make that a different argument, then it's basically mudslinging.
Well, that's exactly what it's been. I mean, there's even one idiot that went out there and said I was raped by a Bigfoot. Good gosh, that's insanity. But people still ask me about that. One of the people they threatened, the government threatened, they said, we can't spin DNA. So if you value your family, you'll never speak to her again. And this was not just one person. This was 3 labs and a whole myriad of other people with expertise that wanted to come in and help. This one that had the gumption to contact me and let me know what happened.
My guess is it's hitting somebody's pocketbook somewhere.
I know I'm not going to go into why, but I know why. So all they had left was character assassination. Since they can't spin DNA, which they can't, because, it's used in court. We had a lot more evidence than what was used in any death penalty case. Because you just do identity there through, certain forensic kits. We did those on it too, but we also did, whole genomes and all this other work. And it's funny. There's a journal called PLOS, and it's not a real high quality journal. I have done some review for them, and they'll take most things for review. They wouldn't even take our paper to look at it. Yet they published a paper about a new monkey in Africa, and they only had I believe it was 35,000 bases of sequence or something. It wasn't very much. We had 3 billion on 3 samples.
Wow.
And, they didn't have 1/10 as much information as we did. Not even 1/10. And yet they wouldn't even look at our paper, but they published that one.
This is a work in progress. So basically, at this point, to be continued.
Well, it will be continued. It's just a matter of, like I say, getting the right people with the right funding. And, it's not even going to take that much. The original project was exceptionally expensive. But, everything has gotten so much cheaper with the genomes and everything that now, we're probably looking at about $50,000 to finish everything.
So that's...
Which is nearly so bad as $500,000 that we had to spend before.
For people who do believe and who have had experiences, this is basically light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, like I say, if it doesn't happen, it's not meant to happen is the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to continue. I'm writing now. I have a bunch of books I've written, and I'm continuing that, and I'm enjoying my retirement.
I think it's going to be a very colorful retirement.
Oh, let's hope not. I don't want it to be colorful. I just want to get done with it and have some peace.
Well, the fact that you stumbled into this, I don't believe there are accidents. I believe right person, right place, right time. And I'm sorry it's been complicated, but at the same time, you seem to be doing it in an ethical way where it's not all about the glory. It's about getting the job done and getting it credible, certified, so that if people should know about going to these places, they have a warning that not all of these beings want to see you. And they certainly don't want you to be there photographing them. So whatever we're doing in the forest, in the woods, we should be respectful of these areas. And that's just, common sense, but not for everybody.
Well, and that's one of the real basic levels where the government has an issue, because they come out with this, there's going to be people screaming for habitat. Well, they don't need habitat. They live right under our noses. But, a lot of people will think they need habitat, and then you have the spotted owl all over again. It'll affect the timber industry. And then the other thing is, like with national parks, if people knew that tall, hairy beings were watching them, they probably wouldn't want to go to the national park. So, there's a myriad of reasons. There's a bunch more besides that, but those are two obvious ones. So, they don't want it to come out.
Thank you for the update. This is an issue that isn't going to go away. And there's so much, backstabbing. Well, it's frustrating, because there are different sides and everybody seems to be all at odds over who's going to get, like you said, the competition, who's going to get there first. This isn't about getting there first, it's about getting there, period.
Yeah, I got there and look what it got me.
Yeah, I know. It's like, okay, whoops.
Well, actually, I wasn't the first. There's a whistleblower that's come forth that was a scientist. He was terminally ill, and he corroborated everything and gave me more evidence than what I had.
So there's a smoking gun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a cliffhanger. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Well, I'm hoping it'll go quickly.
I will hope on your behalf that that's the way it goes too.
Yes, hopefully it will.
Dr. Ketchum, thank you. I appreciate your time. When the next shoe drops, we're going to be on it or behind it or maybe out of the way. If it's a Bigfoot shoe, Yes, it will be a Bigfoot shoe. And that's the update from Dr. Ketchum. If you'd like to follow along and actually do some more reading and research on what's going on with the Bigfoot DNA, SasquatchGenomeProject.org. There are other people who are also interested in this and trying to do their own research and come up with more proof of Bigfoot. The proof is when you see one, because seeing, in this case, is believing. I'll post some links, I already have actually, on Wendy's Coffee House, the blog. Thanks for listening.